on the line. If you'd like to join the conversation, 407-774-8255. Perhaps you can explain better than I can. The hotel computers where the Iranian negotiations were going on, evidently there was some sort of virus that was suspected was the product of Israeli intelligence. I'm sure the story was big over there, was it not?
The story was, yes, the story was big over here. The story was that there was, as you said, there was this virus that apparently had taken over the computer systems of the hotels where the talks were taking place. There was some security firm that pointed its finger at Israel. Israel denied it. But with these types of things, there's really no way to know who's telling the truth, who might even be planting a false story. When you get into these, this spy versus spy type stuff, there's just no way to know what the truth is.
And wasn't this agency, the people who discovered this, wasn't it a Russian cybersecurity firm or something like that?
Yes, it was.
So that right there should cause someone a little bit of doubt anyway. And, I'm the last person. I mean, these people around here will tell you I'm as illiterate as it comes when it comes to computers and how they work and all that. But it seems to me that a clever person could take a computer, say, somewhere in Russia and make it look like a virus came from Israel or somewhere. Couldn't they do something like that? Is that beyond the realm of possibility?
Well, I'm no expert on this stuff, but if they were able to hack all of the between the personnel files of the U.S. government and everything that that Snowden had downloaded, I don't think it would be all that hard for them to fake some sort of virus attack. But again, that's really out of my realm.
Yeah, like you say, when you get in that spy versus spy world, you really don't know which way is up or down, for that matter. But let's imagine for a moment that Israel did feel the need to somehow try to eavesdrop, if it will, on these negotiations. Wouldn't that be as much a testimony as the lack of trust that exists now between Israel and the United States as anything else, if it were the case?
If it were the case, it would indicate that Israel is not confident that the United States is sharing all the information about, that the U.S. is not being totally straight with Israel about what's going on at these talks.
Right.
Now, all along, Prime Minister Netanyahu had made statements along the lines that Israel knows exactly what's going on at the talks. When I think that either Kerry or Obama had made comments along saying that Israel might have been misinformed, that they were panicking over things that they didn't understand. So Israel said, we know exactly what's going on. Now, whether they know that because they've been told by other parties there, whether they know it because they've been bugging the hotel, I don't know. I'd kind of like to think that they successfully, it's kind of cool if they took over the computer system and bugged the hotel that way.
I think it's awesome if they did that, and only rightfully so. I mean, as you've said many times on the show, this is an existential problem for Israel. This is not, a recession or a depression and we'll somehow make our way through it. Iran gets a bomb. It's a whole new ball game for Israel over there. It is a whole new world, and you just cannot take any chances. And not saying that they did, but if they did, hats off to them. The war reports. The UN is getting ready to come out with a war report, as they call it. At least that's what they're calling it in the media over here, having to do with the conflict last year, which started last July in the Gaza Strip, of course, after Hamas had been launching hundreds of rockets into Israel. Finally, Israel, got tired of it and did something about it. But evidently, Israel just released your own report on the incidents. Can you tell us what was in that we might not find in the UN report?
Yeah, well, the UN report, the UN Human Rights Council is going to issue a report probably later this week. And the feeling in Israel is that the UN is hardly the institution that's going to give Israel a fair shake. There was the kind of infamous Goldstone report that you might remember from a few years ago from a previous war with Gaza,
right?
That slammed Israel. That it was so bad that Goldstone himself, who was tasked with putting together the commission to write the report, he even disavowed it. So.
And that was after a similar conflict back in like 2008 or 2009, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So to preempt it, to preempt the United Nations report this time, both Israel issued a report, and there was also a report that was issued by a multinational group of senior military officers, including the former chiefs of staff of Germany, Italy, and Spain, and the former commander of British forces in Afghanistan.
Wow.
So that's really there. Yeah. And they came out, their conclusions were that Israel had bent over backwards to avoid civilian casualties, often at the cost of endangering the lives of Israeli civilians and soldiers. But they said that the measures that Israel took to reduce the suffering of the civilian population in Gaza was far in excess of the requirements of the Geneva Conventions or any other laws of war.
And I believe I believe you described those to us last year as they were happening. Israel was dropping dummy bombs, I guess, sort of, get ready. The real thing's coming. They had dropping leaflets, even calling people on the telephone.
Calling people on their telephones. That's right. And sending text messages to them, to the people in the buildings that they were going to hit.
In a more Go ahead, Abe. Finish your thought, please.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
I was going to say, in a more perfect world, the UN would be issuing a scathing report against the Palestinians and Hamas in particular for using innocent civilians as human shields, trying to get them killed so that they could have their little piece of paper, their little report that they could go waving around in people's faces.
Yeah, that's that is about as cynical as Hamas has been. I mean, they were using human shields. They were launching rockets from hospitals, from mosques, from schools, and just daring Israel to hit them back in those places. Of course, they were launching rockets aimed at the Israeli civilian population. They tried various terror attacks by having people dress up in Israeli military uniforms. These are all things that violate all the norms of
it's violation
civilized war.
It's violations of the Geneva Convention.
Violation of the Geneva Convention.
Absolutely, and here's the UN going to, overlook all of that because, of course, as you said earlier, they have no good record when it comes to Israel. And of course, now with the Iranian and other influences growing in the UN, that problem is only going to grow along with it, I'm afraid. But Abe, I just have a couple minutes left here. Let's talk culture for a minute. I saw a story in the paper where I guess there was a gay pride parade in Tel Aviv or something to that effect last week. Is Israel going through sort of the same culture shock as the United States? And what's the story about Jenner? How's that playing over there?
Jenner, they haven't paid much attention to. I don't think too many people know who he is. He wasn't an Israeli athletic hero.
Right.
So,
right.
But in terms of the gay pride parade, This has been going on for a while. Tel Aviv prides itself, no pun intended, as being an extremely gay-friendly city.
Yeah.
And it's always sort of been the division that the people who are more religious and conservative hang out in Jerusalem, and the people who are a little bit more out there live in Tel Aviv. So Tel Aviv has had for, I don't know how many years they've been doing this this parade, but they claim over 100,000 people were at the parade.
Wow.
Yeah. So
well,
it's it's got a little bit of San Francisco flavor to it.
Yeah, I guess it does at that. Well, Abe, it's been a great education as always. Once again, we want to thank you for being a part of our echelon here, the American Adversaries higher-ranking officials, and you always do a great job in informing us on what's going on over there, and great political analysis on what's going on over here too. Well, thank you. It's always my pleasure to be on the show. All right. Well, have a great night over there. And by the way, what's the weather like? It is hot as the dickens here. I guess we got your heat wave from last week. You still going through it? Yeah. No. It's hot and sunny during the day, but it cools down at night. It's been pretty nice. All right. Well, that's good. Enjoy it, and take care of yourself till we talk to you again next week. All right. Thanks. Thank you so very much. Once again, folks, that is Abe Katsman. You can find his work